best VL in the NFL. We're going to say Kamal Hadden, and we're going to say Joe Milton, and then we're going to add to that list. Who are we adding to that list?
Jaylen Wright. Who is the best VFL at the NFL Combine?
There's no question. And we probably underestimated him. Best VFL in the NFL. Now, Jaylen Wright ran a 4.39 40, is that right?
4.38.
4.38. We underestimated him as a running back. That's the type of power and speed that punishes defense and makes them not want to make tackles late in games. I'm not saying that Tennessee's going to be without any pop on offense when they run the football, but Jaylen Wright was underestimated. We would like for you to vote on the poll question that is on YouTube right now. Best VFL in the NFL, Joe Milton, Kamal Hadden, and Jaylen Wright. Now, you have to factor into that Jaylen Wright plays running back, okay? That he's not probably going to have a 15-year career. So when you vote for that, be mindful of that. Joe Milton could hold a clipboard for 18 years. But let's start with the weekend that Jaylen Wright had, in which he looked like he was shot out of an absolute cannon, powerful runner. He's the guy that if I'm an NFL GM, I'm dreaming of, because of the position he plays, he slides to the third or fourth round. What did you think, Caleb?
Yes, Jaylen Wright he was the star running back of the weekend. And here's why. He's a 4.38 40 guy, meaning he's an all-purpose back, but he is physical. We watched him this past year. He was the feature back for Tennessee.
This is not Marshall Faulk. This is not a scat back.
No, not a scat back at all. This is something we kind of wish we saw in 2022, and it's kind of unfortunate when you look back. Remember, Jaylen Wright battled injuries in 2022 a lot, so Jabari Small was more the starter that year.
Yes.
And could you imagine if it was Jaylen Wright and Hendon Hooker back there together, what that offense could have been and just how elite they could have been? And
that's pretty good stuff. Brought to you by the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, strict standards to ensure you receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. Hemp House chat with 2Ts.com. Yeah, they'd have had a lot more pop, because I don't want to have recency bias or throw back off Jabari Small when I thought he was good. He just didn't have the pop out of the backfield that Jaylen Wright has. Even in retrospect, Jabari Small, I don't know if he runs a sub 4.5 40. I'm sure he's probably in the 4.4 range, I would think. But that's a full stride slower than Jaylen Wright.
It is. And Jaylen Wright this year was everything Jabari Small was with that speed. And so he was clearly the better back. And remember, I mean, we've talked about it a lot. We're going to get to him, but the offense was severely limited as it was with Joe Milton. And so they couldn't run if you guys don't, Heupel's offense, the vertical rushing attack is crucial, and it only works if the quarterback is a threat to spread on those deep balls and those passes over the middle, of which Joe Milton was not. And so Wright did not have as much room to work with most of the time. Not to mention Cooper Mays was hurt for part of the year, which is the most crucial player when it comes to run blocking out there. So the combination of and then Javonte Spraggins got hurt at the end of the year. So Cooper Mays and Javonte Spraggins both got hurt. The two key pieces of the interior run blocking. Joe Milton couldn't spread the offense the way Hendon Hooker could. And then Wright, because of Heupel's philosophy, had to split more time with Small than you would typically want somebody to. All of that limited exactly how great he could have been for Tennessee last year.
Can we have a little fun here for a second? Because we know that the running back position is not what it once was, right? So I'm not going to throw out an O.J. Simpson or an Eric Dickerson or somebody that's monumentally great. But let me throw out some running backs who recently would have been considered better than Jaylen Wright and ask you this question. Dylan Sampson better than Jaylen Wright? I'm going to go first on that.
That's crazy.
Dylan Sampson's better than Jaylen Wright.
Dylan Sampson's not better than Jaylen Wright by any stretch of the imagination at all.
Agreed. All right. Jahmyr Gibbs.
Hey now.
It's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah, like Jahmyr Gibbs is proven, but like I could see Jaylen Wright being better. I wouldn't be shocked if he's better in the NFL.
I wouldn't either. I think it depends what you want. Do you want some power between the tackles, or do you want Gibbs, who can maybe do a little bit more things on the outside? Any tailback that I'm missing that people have raved over, and can we compare him to Jaylen Wright's? Because I'm telling you, I think Daniel's right. I think his 5-yard speed was overlooked. I agree with a lot of these guys. Before we get to Milton and Hadden, anything else you want to say about Jaylen Wright?
Christian McCaffrey. Let's go Christian McCaffrey.
Okay. Christian McCaffrey, better, but way, way different, right?
Yeah. But he's still somewhat of a scat back, to be fair.
But Jaylen's not a scat back.
Right. He's not.
Okay.
What about just previous player in there, Alvin Kamara? We kept comparing Dylan Sampson to Alvin Kamara. Maybe Jaylen Wright's the Alvin Kamara.
More between the tackle guy, in my opinion. Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals? Tell them that Off the Hook Sports sent you. The Fire Opals are awesome. A Tennessee tradition. RickTerryJewelry.com. RickTerryJewelry.com. Tell them Off the Hook Sports sent you. Support our sponsors. That's why we're here. And then Joe Milton, arm strength, improved accuracy. Kind of. I watched him throw. He threw a very limited number of passes. If I were his agent, I wouldn't have let him throw at all. But he did throw, and he was fine. They were ones. They weren't even team drills. So basically, Joe Milton will go. His round will be determined by 2 or 3 rounds at the pro day when he throws to Tennessee's current players, and he had better complete pretty much every one of those passes, because when you compete in a pro day with your own players at your own field, you're expected to complete 100%, not 99.9%, but it puts more pressure on Joe Milton for the pro day. But I don't think he had a choice. I don't think if he would have gone out there and shown off his accuracy by a full round of throwing, that would have helped his case. So I don't really think he had a choice. I think he had to put it on the pro day, and I think he needs to do a lot of work with the Jacob Warrens of the world and the McAllen Castles of the world and the Ramel Keatons of the world, and make sure that they look like first-round skill position players, because we all know that Joe Milton has his, let's say, limitations.
Joe Milton is the Washington Commanders of individual NFL players. And Dave knows where I'm going for this. For those who don't know.
Not really. No, it's the funny part is I don't.
Okay. During the Dan Snyder years, because Dan Snyder is one of the most unintelligent people to ever do anything, Dan Snyder would open up the checkbook for the most splash free agent signing possible. Remember this, Dave? Deion Sanders in 1999 when he first got there. Opened up the checkbook for a aging turf toe ridden Deion Sanders who was nowhere near what he was anymore. Albert Hainsworth gave Albert Hainsworth $100 million to play in a defensive system that wasn't even a fit for him. Then, this was Dan Snyder's whole career as owner of Washington. He would open up the checkbook every single year for the biggest free agent on the market and sacrifice the rest of the team. Every Washington fan would be like, look at the team we have. Look at the player we got. We're going to win the Super Bowl this year. They were the all-season champions every year. Joe Milton is the all-season champion of individual talent because he struggles in the regular season, and then he starts doing practice stuff in the all-season, whether it's camps or combines, and we're like, man, this guy's amazing. Here's why Joe Milton won from the NFL Combine over the weekend. GMs fell in love with his arm because scouts can't help themselves. They fall in love with Joe Milton's arm. I told you guys this, the same way they fall in love with the hot, toxic girl at the bar, okay? Sometimes you just can't resist.
I think there's some sobriety that's hit some of these scouts, but I still agree with you 80%.
Yes. So that's a good one.
I think some people say, I haven't had enough beer goggles to find that person attractive.
But
But
here's what they do.
I do think that 80% of the scouts are on the same page as you.
They make an excuse in their head on why they look. So the rule is in the NFL, they look for reasons not to draft you.
Well, you know what my scout told me about Joe Milton, about
What?
the excuse in his head. It's footwork. It's footwork.
Okay.
And that Josh Heupel teaches a certain type of footwork where you can read half the field. If you're watching on our video platform on YouTube, then you're seeing me doing like a football move that doesn't look real great. But you're basically reading one half of the field. So that hurt Hendon Hooker as well. And it'll continue to hurt quarterbacks. Not to say they can't overcome it, but that's his footwork. So a scout's going to look at that and say, I can fix that. And if you can fix that, then you're going to have a really good NFL quarterback. I just don't know that you can.
That's where I'm going with this, is that traditionally in the NFL, they look for reasons not to draft you. Is that fair to say? They look for reasons why they shouldn't draft you before they look for reasons why they should.
Yes, agreed.
When it comes to quarterbacks with big arms, they do the opposite. They look for reasons why. Yeah, they look for reasons why they should. Joe Milton was semi-competent, apparently, on the short intermediate passes over the weekend. And then that wasn't enough for a scout to say, okay, he's not as bad as we thought. We could work with this, and we could work with the footwork, like you said, so we'll take him.
Oh, listen, I love to gamble, but when at card games, not gambling as much as sports, but when I figure a game out, it kind of gets boring. So, Caleb, I know the play to make in blackjack. I know whether or not you should hit or not. I've read the book, learned the rules, moved on to craps because it's a little bit more volatile. Joe Milton's craps, because you could get down and you could start playing in the middle of a heater, is what they're called, and you could walk away from the table with 10 grand after a $200 investment. You could also lose your $200 in 3.5 minutes. So that's kind of what Joe Milton is. Out of the group, I'm going to stand by. Kamal Hadden is going to have the longest NFL career and will be deemed the most successful out of these three guys. Call me crazy if you would like.
I'm with you. Kamal Hadden is he's a number 2 cornerback. He's not going to be able to be like he's never going to be able to guard like those elite, like, the Calvin Johnson type receivers. That's not going to be Kamal Hadden's thing, but he will always be able to guard the other guy. And that's where he's going to thrive.
And remember, now there's room for 3 of those guys in each starting NFL lineup, because you have 3 guys that are essentially defensive backs. Nowadays, the nickelback has taken place of the outside linebacker to some extent. So you have more opportunity for Hadden as well.
That is true. I always told people nickelback would make a comeback in the 2010s and people would realize how great they are. And
when I get occasionally when I get my 90s playlist, like I'm hitting the gym and that comes on, that's a big downer. Hit that like and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate that. So you would
Kamal Hadden was limited. So just wanted to point that out over at the combine, but he did. They were impressed by how smooth he was at the actual on-field drills. He didn't do the physical measurables, but they were impressed by how smooth he was at the on-field drills with his footwork.
Okay. Which of the 3 would you draft first? It's a supplemental draft. So like the round, you remember how the old supplemental draft worked?
I know how it worked. I was too young when it happened, so I can't remember.
You would have a pick in April. Well, no. It was like June. But then, like, if you used a first-round pick, it counted off next year's first-round pick. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So you actually used your pick for the next year. So you've got these 3 guys sitting on the board. You are using what round in what order for these 3 guys? I'll go ahead and tell you. I'm taking Hadden 4. I'm assuming they'll be there, okay, which they might not be. Wright 4. Aren't we just doing an NFL draft projection now at this point? And then I would take Joe Milton 7th.
So
I guess it's not a projection. It's my projection, right?
So much of this depends on who does the draft class value. Because half the draft is you may love somebody, but you base it on, do these other teams like him? And if they don't like him, we can wait to pick him and draft him. So you guys should, I don't know if you guys know, the Patriots always loved Tom Brady, but the reason they waited so long to draft him is because they knew he was falling late in the rounds, but then they actually took their mind off him because they were shocked he wasn't taken by the 6th round. They were shocked he was still available at that point. So that's kind of an interesting tidbit of the Patriots. So I think, yeah, I'll draft Kamal Hadden first, even though I think Jaylen Wright, in terms of rare talent above the rest of the players at their position, I think Jaylen Wright stands out the most.
Give me 4 years, I'm taking Jaylen Wright, and it's not close.
Well, then I'm taking Jaylen Wright.
Give me 8 years, and I'm taking Kamal Hadden, and it's close. If you want to vote in our poll question, best BFL in the NFL will be Joe Milton, Kamal Hadden, Jaylen Wright. Wright, 88% of the vote. Hadden, 12% of the vote. Milton, no vote.
Milton.
What the age?
Well, let's put it this way. I'm in that realm. I'm going Jaylen Wright, Dave, because I'm just going to say it to you. I am a very big win now guy in the NFL. I don't believe in like betting for the future, and if I would take the greater 4 years over the more stable 8 years, always. I go for win now, 100% of the time.